Well, for everyone who is watching, happy Friday, as if days matter or a thing anymore. I'm super stoked because today I am talking with John deBary, who is the co-founder and the board president for the Restaurant Workers Community Foundation. Today we're going to talk about how the foundation works to advocate for and organize community action to improve the lives of restaurant workers everywhere. John, we were just talking about how I haven't seen you since 2016, and
Wow.
I do have to tell you, my friend, you are a sight for sore eyes. So thank you for
likewise.
being here.
Thanks for having me.
At anytime, absolutely anytime. I know a lot of people watching probably know a little bit about, your contributions to beverage and writing, which I hear maybe there's a new book on the horizon. But we're going to talk about all that in just a little bit.
Yeah.
But first, could you tell me and everyone watching a little bit about you and your role with Restaurant Workers Community Foundations?
Sure. Yeah. Not to go too far back in the archives, but I got started at PDT back in 2008. I kind of snuck in before the place super blew up, which was very lucky, and I was there for 5.5 years. I also, alongside bartending at PDT, I bartended at Momofuku Sambar, and then I transitioned to being the bar director for the group, and I worked for Momofuku for 9 years total, and I opened 10 restaurants for the group, trained tons of bartenders, managed cocktail programs. So I kind of got through, I had two very deep, long experiences at two places. I kind of got to see a really good cross-section of the restaurant industry. And in late 2016, early 2017, I got together with, it started as a conversation between me and the co-founder. Her name is Alex Familia. She was a former colleague at Momofuku. And we were thinking about ways to kind of aggregate and build the strength of the restaurant worker community in the United States, because there's about 15 million people, 16 that work in the industry. It's a huge population, and it's such a vital part of our economy and our sort of emotional and cultural lives that there really needed to be additional, action taken to support that community. So we were kind of texting about something. I had a vague idea, and my husband, who's a philanthropic advisor, basically, he said that I kind of told him what this idea was for a way of supporting the restaurant industry, and he said, this sounds like a community foundation. And so what a community foundation is it's a grant making entity. So we primarily give money away, but as opposed to like a traditional foundation like a Ford Foundation, Rockefeller, et cetera, rather than starting with a chunk of money and just you're using that to give grants, we also fundraise. So it's a way for us to use the kind of strengthen the community from people who have the resources to be able to support other people, to be able to distribute those to people who need help. Broadly, we hope to address a lot of the quality of life issues that I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this are quite well aware of in the restaurant industry, with regards to low wages, racial imbalance, racial inequality, immigration issues, mental health, substance abuse, gender equity, and sexual violence in the workplace. So we really wanted to be able to raise money, advocate for structural changes to the restaurant industry by supporting organizations that were doing work to help address these issues. And so we got together with a group of, the original board was 6 people, and we formed the organization, and legally we were authorized as a 501c3 in September of 2018. And that was kind of our launch day. We had a little gathering at our house, kind of a coming out party, if you will. Then we had a sort of a modest quarter year, for 2018, as far as fundraising and grant making. And then last year was kind of our first real full year. And our goals for that year was to raise $30,000 and to grow the board to 20. And we got the board up to 20 people, a really good mix of nonprofit people as well as people who work in the restaurant industry. So it's like a cool coming together of expertise that's really, I think, is really important. And then we actually raised $40,000. So we were very pleased by surpassing our fundraising goal. A big part of that was actually Britany Week. We got a ton of support from that. And the response to that was just really overwhelming and really validating, actually. And so we were able to give grants to organizations that were looking to address the low wages, wage disparity in the industry, sexual assault in the workplace, immigration, mental health issues. And then we were on track to have kind of another slightly bigger year in 2019 or 2020. And as it sort of started, I feel like it started to dawn on everybody in like early March that like, like, I don't know how long restaurants are going to be able to remain open for. And sort of as that kind of began to take shape in everyone's imagination. And also people had seen this, you know, for a couple months prior, like people were going out less and then kind of getting a little more cautious. And I think it really hit the second weekend in March where the restaurants are basically closed in New York City and everyone just kind of had a collective panic moment. And that weekend, March 15th, we had an emergency meeting of our board, and we decided to do to have a dedicated response to this, because that's, you know, why else would we be around if we weren't, you know, addressing this kind of thing head on. So what we decided to do was we really wanted to be able to provide resources for people to be able to know where to go to get help and connect to local organizations that could provide assistance. And then we also wanted to develop a relief fund. We don't as a, you know, kind of our classic model of operation, we don't do like relief efforts. It's more like how to kind of fix the problems like underlying the issues. But for this, it's like there's just so much suffering that's going to happen that we just had to do something that addresses like immediate needs like housing, food, medical, these things. So we developed this COVID-19 relief fund where half of the money goes towards direct financial assistance to restaurant workers who are facing like a financial, like a real emergency, like life or death kind of stuff. And then a quarter goes to nonprofits that are doing work to address the needs of restaurant workers right now. And then the last quarter of it, we are setting up a zero interest, no collateral loan program for small businesses to get kind of back up and running. It's kind of technically a micro loan, so we're looking at between like $20,000 and $50,000 for those loans. And that was 8 weeks ago, and we were really thought the resource page was going to be it, and we have had developed this amazing list of resources, and so it's one of the best ways to go to find help, you know, wherever you need it. And the fund, you know, we thought we'd raise some money and it would be helpful. And we've raised about $5.5 million in eight weeks, which is like
that's
not something I ever.
Many people. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we really weren't expecting that kind of response, and I think that it just goes to show we had a lot of people who were kind of locked in place to be like the structure of the organization was really strong, and we had a lot of really great people who were very ready to go, you know, should they need them. And then this is the perfect opportunity to kind of turn everything on. So we had committees, we had all these amazing people who are helping us with fundraising and, you know, responding to emails and, you know, just you name it, like it's just completely blown up, and we've been able to really respond to it because we have so many awesome people who are helping out. And since then, it's just been, you know, the level of support that we've gotten from individuals, huge, you know, sponsors, you know, every kind of person who's offering to help. We've gotten a great response from them, and then also we've gotten just a ton of messages from individual people who are really, you know, who are really facing a hard time, like a really urgent issue. And so, like I said before, we're really like a grant-making organization. So we're not really set up to provide services because we're all volunteers, and, you know, we're just not professionals in that regard. So we partnered with the Southern Smoke Foundation, which is founded by Chris Shepard, to help restaurant workers who are facing financial crises and to be able to support them through those emergencies. And we partnered with them, and initially they were basically 2 full-time employees. They handled maybe like a couple hundred cases, and then now they've hired 40 out-of-work restaurant people to handle their caseload, and they're granting out about, I think, probably around $80,000 per day in emergency grants to people. And we're talking like real money to help people in really serious situations, like paying medical bills or fleeing abusive spouses or losing their utilities, things that are really, people are really on the edge. So yeah, it's just been really amazing to find a partner to work with and being able to just like shovel money at them and just have them just deploy it in the strongest way possible.
Be able to support people who know how to do that part of the work by providing them the money that they need to do that kind of work, instead of being like, we don't really know how to do that work, but we have this money, so we're going to try and hopefully it works.
Exactly.
Well, I'm super glad you've covered a couple of my questions, which were about the 3
I can just talk and
pillars
talk and talk.
Well, this is a really great thing to be talking about. Y'all are doing a lot of really great work, and I'm super, super thankful for everything that y'all have been doing for folks who really need the help, for organizations who really need the financial help to be able to provide direct relief to people. So you should be talking about it. That's exactly what you should be doing. Yeah. But you did cover a couple of my questions about the 3 pillars of the organization, the advocacy, grant making, and impact investing. And you talked a little bit about your partnership with Southern Smoke. But as far as I want to go a little bit into maybe some other partnerships you've had that you've seen a lot of success in pre-COVID-19, possibly other ones you've had during COVID-19. Before we get too much more into all of the wonderful work the organization is doing, I want to ask you, you've had a really, really impressive career in beverage, and I know you've got some things on the horizon, and I would love to hear, and maybe if there's someone watching that's not familiar, maybe tell a little bit. I know we kind of covered some places you've worked, but a little bit about how your career and what you have on the horizon has added to your skill set in being the co-founder of this organization and into bringing this idea to life.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's all, everything sort of is all weaved together in a way that kind of leads you to something, an endpoint in your life. It's a very rambling road, at least for me. And something that I realized kind of early on is that, there's a real, that being a bartender, I think is I enjoyed every second of it. But I kind of realized that this was sort of like, I kind of started as a bartender because I didn't really have anything going on. And I was like, I gotta go to law school. And I was like, this sounds cool. This is a pretty sweet, like, hidden cocktail bar in St. Mark's Place. Like, yeah, I'll work there. I realized that this is actually part of like a really, it's a real job. It's a real industry. And I think that prior to this COVID crisis, people were beginning to kind of see the professionalization of people who work in the beverage and service industry. And I would still get questions from people like, what's your real job? Like, what do you really want to do? And this is it, and so I devoted a lot of time to like studying. I also had to train other people how to bartend, and usually people who had no experience bartending. I had to make it quick and easy. I opened up 10 restaurants, and sometimes I was opening up 2 at a time. So I had to really do a lot of work to make training efficient and leading people and being able to set up systems so that you kind of like engineer your own obsolescence in a way, to give people the tools to succeed on their own rather than having you hold their hand through everything. And so that kind of naturally led to, I kind of got into some writing, talking, sort of writing about the industry, writing about cocktails. And then it led to a book, which is coming out in 2 weeks. So that's another thing that's going on. And that's an interesting time to be selling a book right now. But I think, like you said earlier before we started, it's nice to have like some fun things to look at and to busy yourself with. So I hope it's like a nice diversion for people. And the book is a lot about how to adapt these core lessons to any situation that you're in. So it's not like you're gonna have to find like some specific kind of saffron from, that's harvested in second weekend in July. You know, it's like very, very like easy stuff that's like you can adapt to whatever you kind of circumstances that you're in. So that's a good moment, I guess, for some of these lessons in the book. So
absolutely,
people get a lot out of that. And then, you know, with the foundation, I think that what led to it was sort of kind of a feeling of helplessness after the 2016 election, and kind of the idea that something that things were going to get worse before they got better, and how to kind of forestall that or kind of reverse that somehow. And also, you know, I think that there's definitely, you know, with regards to like who succeeds in the industry and who doesn't, and who has the opportunities and the time and the connections, there's still a tremendous amount of privilege towards people who look like me, and people who have my class background, et cetera. So it seemed sort of like like a really moral choice to be able to use those assets to be able to kind of support the community as a whole, rather than kind of just sitting on them. So it was a way for me to kind of acknowledge that I was really lucky in all of this. So I want to be able to undo some of the structures that kind of lead to those inequalities, and help people succeed, because there's just the people who work in, I mean, you know this, people who work in the bar and restaurant industry are just like some of the best people in the world, and they deserve to be treated so much better than they do. Both, you know, of course, there's always bad employers, but you know, just kind of as a society as a whole, I do like, especially now we're realizing that these people just aren't paid enough for the kind of essential service that they're providing for us. And I hope that this is a moment that everyone's going to realize that. So that's really, that kind of feeling of helplessness was really kind of what spurred me to have this, you know, conversation that morphed into this group. And I think it's been very validating over the years to see people respond to that and say, oh crap, like this is something that we need. Like we want to be able to support the community because we're doing well, and we know that it's so hard for a lot of people to succeed, that this is a really important thing to be working on. And so that's what's kind of kept me going, because this is a lot of hard work, you know, but and it's also like, it's, you know, it's hard, it doesn't pay well, and it doesn't pay at all because it's a volunteer, but it's really like, you just feel like it's a moral imperative to keep going on something like this. And because other people are kind of cheering you on, it really makes it a lot easier to do the work. And also I got very lucky. I married someone who has worked in philanthropy for their whole career. So I have like a tremendous partner in all of this to be able to navigate the world of nonprofits. And he's brought in board members who work in the nonprofit philanthropic sector. And it's just like being able to savvily navigate, you know, funding, and how to structure your organization, and what kind of bylaws to have, and how to structure your board meetings, is just like such a huge advantage.
All those little details that are so important, and that are, yes. It's not just like easily accessible information, like, no. Because there's so many like little things of like, yeah, I really want to do this thing because I feel compelled and obliged to take care of the people around me. And then it's like the scroll that drops down, and there's like 9 million rules, but none of them are fully explained. So
yes.
Having someone who actually knows what the words were supposed to mean, but that they didn't actually write down, is super, super helpful for that. And because this video is unsponsored, I feel absolutely good giving a big hell yeah to your comment about how everybody who works in bars and restaurants should have already been being treated better. So if we can use this time to make that happen, for it. So we've talked about how we got here, and kind of the creation of Restaurant Workers Community Foundation. And we've talked a little bit about the 3 pillars. And I think one thing that I wasn't super clear on until I looked at the website, which we're going to talk about how you can find Restaurant Workers Community Foundation online before we get off this video, was like the grant making part. Like now I kind of understand it because you talked about Southern Smoke, but like I've obviously heard of like the Rockefeller Foundation, I never really understood how they worked. I was just like, oh, those are people with names that everyone knows that do things nice sometimes, I think. So I know, like, because there are so many organizations that are trying to help, and it's kind of hard to sift through all of that information and figure out like what is the right fit for maybe your donation or like volunteering your time or who to ask for help. Can you talk a little bit about like a little bit about advocacy and how that looks or looked pre-COVID, and then a little about grant making and a little about the impact investment? I know you were talking about those micro loans. So.
Yeah, so those three kind of program areas exist alongside this the fund. So the fund kind of reflects it in a way, but it really has a separate agenda, and we have almost a separate budget for it at this point. And the idea behind the foundation as a whole is kind of like you touched on it a little bit, where rather it's almost the same way you would do with your like a money manager or like a mutual fund, where the value that someone is adding by handling this money for you is that they have the expertise and they've done all the research, so that they know how to deploy these resources as best as possible, so that someone can just trust that when they make a donation, it's going to go to the best outcome possible. So rather than someone else doing all their own homework and maybe not knowing if something is legit or if it's really helping, they can just sort of say, we trust you with this, like you have the expertise, you have the channels to be able to deploy this the most effective way possible. So that's kind of how that feeds into the three pillars. And like the grant making we do, we research, and we have relationships with all of our grantees, of course, so we really are, we use those funds to be able to support people who are addressing the kind of these core issues that we're worried about with wage inequality, sexual violence in the workplace, racial injustice, mental illness, substance abuse, and by we didn't really have a ton of cash on hand, as a small organization that just got started. And so what we wanted to do in addition to be able to financially support these people is to be able to create a community from those people as well, and bring our grantees together. And maybe people have heard of each other and they've like seen something, online about someone else, but then being able to get people in the same room was really part of what we wanted to be able to do until we could, be able to really help people in a huge financial way. And then the advocacy piece of our work really has to do with kind of our own like operating, as far as like our website, these kinds of like very kind of nuts and bolts infrastructure thing, but also we were really wanting to be able to create networks of people within the industry, people like managers and back of house managers, front of house, hourly employees, owners, like being able to kind of create these structures to help bind the industry together, and to kind of share a supportive set of guidelines for what really works in the industry for helping people to be able to provide the best possible workplace for their workers. Because I think that there tends to be a bit of an adversarial us versus them relationship with like kind of ownership and the employees, and that certainly exists. But I think that for the most part, especially with like very small businesses, the line between the owner and the person who's working looking the kitchen line or whatever is really not that strong. So I mean, which is fine, and that's how that works. And so it's more about being able to give people the tools to help people to give the best outcome for their employees, whether that's knowing the laws, knowing where to go to get their help for people. So we've been developing those for the past year. We have a draft set on our website. That's something we always try to circulate, and we're always trying to get feedback on. And we're even through this and not being able to really get people in the same room physically, we're still trying to get that out there. And so that's kind of the advocacy is basically just our operations and what we do ourselves. Then the impact investing piece was really, it's kind of almost a little bit what started the idea, because the co-founder and I, we really kind of wanted to see about ways to like enhance the financial strength of the restaurant industry, and particularly small businesses that maybe don't have the same kind of access to capital as a lot of people, there's a certain set of people who are very connected to rich people and very connected to venture capital and people with tons of money to be able to invest in something. And then there's a whole other group of people that just never get in the room. They never get the connections. They're just not seen as a viable investment because of racism, sexism, you name it. And so we really wanted to be able to provide capital to those kind of underserved, like marginalized people, and being able to give people because we can't just like give money to a business that's not legal under a 501c3, but we can give people very easy money and expect some kind of return on it. Or if it doesn't work out, if the business goes under, then the loss is considered part of our like programmatic expenses, essentially. So it really is like a win-win, and it helps us operate. And if you think about a business being successful, they can then return that money to us, and then we can use that to help someone else. So that's kind of the chain of this. And so we, as you can imagine, with $40,000 in 2019, we were able just to do little, bits and pieces of those things. But now, in the past 8 weeks, we've been forced, yes, but we've been, it's very exciting because it's basically taken us from like year 2 to year 15. And
you had to adapt very quickly.
Yeah, we're like, wow, like people are actually like paying attention to us, and this is what we always wanted, but the speed at which we had to kind of roll with it was pretty staggering. So now we're obviously really focused on the COVID fund and being able to use those funds the best way possible and to raise as much money as possible, because the scale of this is so huge. You're talking about millions of people out of work, and they weren't that well off to begin with. We're talking about people who work shift to shift. You have one bad day, you're sick, bam, you can be in a really bad situation. So we weren't talking about a very well supported population to begin with, and now with this, it's just this crisis is just so widespread. So we're really hoping to kind of keep the momentum going, and unfortunately we've had that's been happening, and it wasn't just something where it sort of was popular for 2 weeks and then people kind of moved on to something else. It really has legs here, and it's been really validating. So now that we have this platform, now that we have people are kind of trusting us, what do we do with that to be able to really like turn this into something that can really make a huge amount of change? So it's just a lot of board meetings about like, okay, now, now we're like really, really legit. And
yeah, you're like, now we're here, so what are we gonna do?
Exactly.
Well, I'm super excited. I really appreciate you kind of walking through all of that, because I think that it is very easy to look at any kind of charity, relief fund, foundation, and be like, I don't understand this, because everything is so like, has to be in all these like perfect boxes in order to be a 501c3 and operate the way that you specifically operate. And once you've established that way that you specifically operate, it's very hard to change that with the government. And I think it's really helpful, when we're looking at all of the options to get aid to people, for folks to be able to understand that I can donate to Restaurant Workers Community Foundation, to the COVID Relief Fund, and this % of money is going to go directly to someone who needs help, and this % is going to go to a charity who is helping. So like, I feel like people are, sometimes, I know for me, it's much easier like when someone just looks at my eyeballs and it's like, take this many, and we're going to put it over here, and take this many, because, there's just a lot of information out there. But because you've been reading my mind this entire interview, the next question I was going to ask you, and you're like, so we're just planning for the future, is what do you see on the horizon for Restaurant Workers Community Foundation?
Great question. I think about it all the time. It's a kind of an interesting goal to hope for the continued existence of this organization, because in the world that you want to see, something like we wouldn't be necessary. So again, it's kind of that theme of like me wanting to like do something that creates my own obsolescence. And so it's kind of a little bittersweet, because you're like, okay, wow, like there's so much need here, and there's so much attention, and there's so much trust that's been given in us. And let's kind of capitalize on that. And it's just, it's kind of like, okay, wow, this is so validating, but also like, ooh, this just goes to show that the problem is so huge, and it's probably going to be a very long-term problem, both kind of in the normal times, but also now. I think all these existing inequalities and all of these structures that were so harmful are now just like completely magnified. And I think that from an organizational standpoint, we really want to be able to become like a real organization, so to speak, in terms of having like staff and people that we pay to raise money, and people that we pay to run the organization and to communicate on our behalf. This is all volunteer. The board is all volunteer. We have one social media person who's actually like the best, and she started like the week this happened, so she got thrown in.
I bet she's had a lot on her plate.
Yeah, but it's been wonderful. So just being, using kind of the leverage that we have to turn, let's say we have like a certain, you can turn like $10,000 into 100 if you use it wisely. So it's about that, and how to put a system and put people a structure in place to be able to come out of this like a really a powerful force that can use the widespread destruction of the industry that's just so heartbreaking to see, but at the same time that that's just the reality of where we are, and we can either we can use this as an opportunity to rebuild the industry in such a way that a lot of these structures that are put in place that have sort of not really necessarily put in place intentionally, but a lot of these things that are legacies of slavery and all these like things that are built into the restaurant industry from hundreds of years ago, maybe have a chance to get cleared away. And we can start anew. And I think there's a moment here that people are really seeing how valuable I think people are really missing restaurants and bars. Like I see it all the time online. People are like, I want to go to a bar and just like sit and talk to strangers and be taken care of by a bartender, or I want to go and like just have someone cook for me. Like that's just not a thing you can do right now. And you can to a limited extent, but I think there's a lot of like mourning for that. And I think that people are hopefully seeing like, well, who are the people who were able to make it happen for me? And it's the people who are working in these bars and restaurants, who many were getting paid very little, and really deserve to get a lot more. And I think that there's a lot more that we can do just as a public to be able to say like this stuff is really valuable. And if anything, restaurant prices were too low in most cases. And the way that tipping works has a lot of problems that help people and are really great for some people, but then it also leaves a lot of people behind. So how to make that more equitable. And then I think also just like as a society, it's like, what does it mean to like who's the government really working for? Like what are our taxes really going towards? Is it going towards the stock market, or are we trying to take care of people so that when something like this happens, we're not completely have widespread destruction? So having a universal health care, having paid sick leave, having childcare, all these things that other countries have just as a matter of complete obvious, of course you have this, seem like such fantasies for us. And I think that the ability to ignore how necessary these things are is getting less and less now that we're seeing something like this happen, and is the complete failure of our social safety net. So we don't have one, so why don't we build one?
Well, I am very excited to see the work that you do towards that. I feel like there are many, many people who are sitting at this crossroads and they're like, none of this checks out. Like all of it is bad and wrong. And I know that it's going to take a lot of people working together for us to get to a place where things are less bad and less wrong. And it's going to take a really long time.
Yeah.
So how can people volunteer with Restaurant Worker Community Foundation? How can they ask for assistance? How can they donate? Where do they find all of this information?
Well, everything is very conveniently located on our website, which is restaurantworkerscommunitycf.org. And I don't know if that translates to the live stream, but it's restaurantworkerscf.org. The full name was too long to put in a URL, so we had to abbreviate somewhere.
Shorten it a little bit.
And so that has pages to donate. We have links to contact us to volunteer. We've had some amazing volunteers come out of the woodwork who've just been like blowing my mind in terms of their ability to help. And we also have on our resource page, we do have links to the Southern Smoke Foundation so that they can apply for help. It kind of brings this kind of access piece is what I think about a lot in terms of, we have these systems in place, and sometimes you see this happening in a lot of places, but in this specifically, like a lot of times the people who need the help the least are kind of the most able to access the help. So it's how are these people who don't have access? They're not looking on Facebook Live. They're not on Twitter. They don't have Instagram. I've heard stories from restaurant workers who are walking like 3 hours a day to food kitchens to be able to feed their family. Like they don't have time to get access to this. So it's like, it kind of breaks my brain a little bit. Like, how do we get this message? How do we get these resources sort of offline, both in a normal sense, but also like given that you can't just go door to door and just like hand out flyers because people will get scared and all this social distancing thing. So it creates like a double layer of challenge. So the best thing I can think of as a solution to this kind of thing is that for people who are watching and people who are looking for ways to help, donation is wonderful. Obviously, we'll take it, but then I think everyone knows at least a couple people who maybe might be able to get help from one of our places, and how do you connect people to us? Like, do you call them, or do you, if you're going to a restaurant and getting takeout, like, do people know about where to get help? Do they have your number? Can they call you? Can you walk them through an application process? Can you help them read something? I think these are all kind of very human, low-tech things that are sort of the last mile in terms of outreach and how to help people. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to help. And I think also we also have a civic duty to like fight for the world that we want to see. So registering to vote, calling your representatives, making sure that workers who actually are the people who provide the most value in our society are prioritized by the laws that we create. Because that really isn't what I see happening in a lot of places. So there's a lot of different ways to be able to help, and we've been tirelessly working at making our website the place to go for all of that. So that's the first place to start. We're here. We're in our houses, and we have our email, so we're reachable. So I'm around. Our board's around. We have, we're busy, but we have time, and we're here to help. And this is what's really important. So, like reaching, kind of getting reaching out to us is always an option.
Awesome. Well, for everybody who's watching, it is probably already in the comments. I don't know. I'm on the Zoom, not on the live stream, so I can't see. But we'll have the link, the Restaurant Workers Community Foundation, in there. Like John said, if you think that Southern Smoke, who's working with Restaurant Workers Community Foundation, can help someone, connect those folks. Go vote. If you can donate to causes that you feel really excited about, do that too. And John, I appreciate your time so much.
Of course. I actually just want to make one thing. I got a lot of questions about this. So I think it's worth saying is that people are very curious about undocumented communities being able to access help. And we do have resources on our page that specifically target those communities. And also Southern Smoke Foundation, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not part of their process to ask about immigration status. So I think a lot of people are curious about, since many undocumented people work in the restaurant industry. There are resources out there for people. It is hard to get them, and usually they tend to be very local and kind of fragmented resources, but there are people doing work to be able to provide services to those people. So I just want to be extra clear about that because it's so important.
I appreciate that. I don't know. I actually super don't know, because I'm a white lady who was born here, but I can't imagine how scary it is to need help and be terrified to ask for it. So thank you for that information. And I did realize that we had, because we were on the Zoom call when I started this question document, and then I totally forgot to look at it. But we did have one question come in. I know we've talked a lot, and I know you're very, very busy. But this one is talking. This person wants to know, with COVID-19 kind of taking over everything right now, and that being your focus. What do you feel like the future approach to the 3 prongs of advocacy, grants, and impact investing is going to be, or have you gotten there yet? Or are you just so focused on dealing with this situation at hand that you're like, we're going to work on that, I promise?
A little bit of both, not to be too squirrely, but I think that a lot of the challenges that we were facing prior to this in terms of our own growth was proving to people why we should be trusted with resources to be able to help the restaurant worker community. And now that's hopefully put some of those questions to bed. So using the credibility that we've built, it's like, how can we use this as a moment to be able to really to go to people and say, look, like, we handled this thing really well. We helped X amount of people. We donated this amount of money, and we did all these outcomes that we're, really, really proud of. And so, if we can do that, then we can also tackle these things through our own original kind of structure and mandate that we set out for ourselves. So it's always like in the back of your mind, as far as like, you create these connections, you meet people, you develop, relationships with funders, people just really are now looking at us. So it's, you have a kind of flash in the pan moment, and then you kind of use that to be able to make your original mission more effective and better implemented.
Well, I'm really excited to see all of the great work that y'all are able to do. Hopefully once all of this COVID madness does not exist anymore. None of us know when that's going to be, but yeah. I'm really excited by what y'all are, the way that you completely shifted your focus to address this and to be there for people when they need it. I'm really excited to see where kind of all of this high-speed practice in addressing issues, how that's able to help y'all continue to do the other great work that the foundation was started to do, once we're able to take our minds off of just like this terrifying thing for just a moment.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on today. It's always so lovely to see you. I mean that Likewise. From the bottom of my heart. I just love you to pieces, and I'm so happy that I got to do this interview. It might have been because I said I was doing it, but that's fine. But once again, the website for Restaurant Workers Community Foundation is in the comments of this video. Go check it out. John, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And everybody, enjoy your Friday.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye.